Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and this is the show where we talk about and celebrate the things we love, movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, giving you the information, but more importantly, context of all the stuff that's going on, so that way when you talk to your movie-loving buddies, you look like you know more than they do. Joining me in studio today is, of course, producer Jonathan Voico.
Hello, everybody.
Writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett.
How's it going?
And most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Here's how our show's going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a number of topics we got lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show is when we take your live comments and questions. If you're watching our show during the live stream, and you have to be watching during the live stream, you can send in a thought, theory, opinion, or a question for us to address. Simply use the super chat feature in the live chat section of the video. And if you send one in that's appropriate for us to address in the show, we'll address it in the second part of the show. All right, guys. All that down, we got a lot of stuff to cover here today, so let's not waste any time and get right to it. And we're going to start with this. AI is all the rage, not just in the world of business and everything else at large, but also in the world of movies and entertainment. And now, one of the most overly protective of their IP companies in the world is just licensed out over 200 of their characters to AI. This headline comes to us from Variety, writing, Disney Inc.'s blockbuster OpenAI deal to bring more than 200 characters to Sora video platform and will invest $1 billion
$1 billion
in the AI company. They go on and write this. The Walt Disney Company and OpenAI reached an agreement for Disney to become the first major content licensing partner on Sora, OpenAI's short-form generative AI video platform, bringing the companies together to unlock new possibilities in imaginative storytelling. Bullshit. Anyway, it's the first instance of Disney licensing its intellectual property to an AI platform. As a part of the 3-year licensing agreement, Sora will be able to generate short, user-promoted, or user-prompted social videos that can be viewed and shared by fans from a set of more than 200 Disney characters from Disney, Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars, including costumes, props, vehicles, and iconic environments. In addition, ChatGPT images will be able to turn a few words typed in by a user into fully generated images in seconds, drawing from the same intellectual property. Now, it goes on to say, and to give a little caveat, that this does not include the images or likenesses of specific actors. So, you can't have Carrie Fisher or something like that, right? But, you can make a generic Princess Leia, I suppose, all that kind of stuff.
Vader
Now,
and Stormtroopers.
here's the thing. There are already some AI video generative apps that simply don't care
Right.
whether they have licensing agreements or not. I mean, we've all seen somebody make a stormtrooper dance the Macarena. We've all seen it, right?
It's one of my favorites that I did.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely banger on the charts.
Yeah.
Banger on the charts. So this is, not exactly groundbreaking, but it is the first time that on a complete legit level Sora on OpenAI is one of the biggest ones out there and most significant, most important ones for Disney to license this out. Now, one of the parts of this deal that you can't ignore is the $1 billion investment. I believe OpenAI is an enclosed investment company, which means you have to be permitted to invest in the company. And I wonder if this licensing deal was a part of the agreement for Disney to be allowed to buy $1 billion worth of stock in the company. Maybe yes, maybe no. Rob, it's important to note that Sora is a short form video creator. It's not like anybody can make any kind of features with this thing at this point in time, unless you do them in 15-second segments.
Which you can do.
Which you could do. Look, I'm torn. I've talked a lot about this in the AI stuff. I'm torn on it. In one sense, it's just the evolution of technology. And to fight against the evolution, history has taught us that fighting against the evolution of technology is a losing battle. Right? And listen, Adobe Photoshop has had the ability for a couple of years now that you can highlight an area of a photo, then maybe that doesn't go all the way to the edge, and click a button that says generative fill, and it'll just fill it in to make it look consistent with the rest of it. And nobody said anything, but that essentially is AI doing that. At the same time, do I want to see a proliferation of the slop that we get online, the deceptive stuff that we get online? I don't. So right now, I'm going to corner myself into I find this fascinating that Disney's actually licensing. It is only a 3-year license, by the way. It's not a perpetual license. It's a 3-year license. So they may be able to change their mind at some point. But I don't know. What's your takeaway from this?
Like you said, this technology is here and it's not going anywhere. The Pandora's box has been opened. John, I've been, for the last couple weeks, I've been making an album using Suno. Now,
for those you don't know, is an AI generative music
program. And what I just wanted to see, what's it like? From a philosophical standpoint, I wanted to challenge myself by doing something to create something out of using AI tools. For me, I created a 4-part workflow process, and Suno is the end of that process. And what's been interesting to me about the whole thing is I'm not a musician. I don't play an instrument. I'd never be able to make music. I've DJ'd in college. That was the extent of it. But I was still mixing 12-inch records, and we had records. You didn't even have computer-assisted programs. And I think I've made some cool things. Now, I'm making covers for them using AI. The whole thing's going to be AI. The band doesn't exist, but I'm pretending it does.
Right.
So I'm doing this whole thing, and at the end of the day, my question has been, is this legitimate creation? Now, I think Disney is really, 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 really smart in doing this, because what they're doing is they're saying, look, if you don't have the likeness rights, you can't use the likeness rights for actors. They're actually creating parameters that are allowing people who are already, like, there's a Lord of the Rings disco video that came out, and that disco video has all the actors in it. Well, that's a no-no. Eventually, someone's going to come down and get sued because SAG's going to get involved. The actors themselves will get involved. You can't use my face. That's what you pay for. Now, what I think is going to happen is I think every actor, like James Earl Jones, licensed his voice in perpetuity to Disney to use as Darth Vader before he passed away. I think we're going to see that. I think you're going to see people eventually coming around going, if you would like to buy a license to use my likeness in something, you can, but you can't make me do this.
James Earl Jones wasn't the last person to do it.
No.
We've already seen, we've talked on the show about other estates and living actors also signing such deals.
And I think they're going to have parameters. But what Disney's doing is they're planting a flag in the sand, because they know that human beings love their product, and they already know that the interwebs are flooded with Star Wars AI videos, and some of them are actually quite good. They're getting better all the time, because people are going to start using it less as a novelty and more as a tool. And they're going to spend a lot more time, like I spent a lot more time on my songs than I would have thought. And so I think this is a great move that Disney's doing. You can be as cynical about AI as you want, but I mean, I'm going to be an old man, and I still want to be using AI to generate creative stuff, and I'll be on my deathbed doing something creative. And if you can do that, I think it's great. And if they can promote, imagine if you're a 5-year-old girl and you learn how to make short Frozen videos. What might that do to your imagination? You might think of ways to use these tools in ways we haven't even thought of yet. And I think, it is the future. Whether it's good or not, I think what Disney's doing is great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the big pushbacks you're going to get from a lot of people is this. At least confined to the conversation about movies and entertainment, is that, AI will lead to the devaluing of talent. Talent isn't important anymore. For example, like
totally
I don't need a skilled guitarist to make I don't need a skilled drummer. I don't need a skilled audio engineer. I don't need a skilled trumpet player or a skilled pianist. And in worlds of this, like, I don't need an animator. I don't need anybody. I can just type it and do it myself. Now, that's always been the big discussion. I'm a little torn on that part of the discussion as well, because our history as a species, especially over the last 100 years, has been coming up with conveniences that replace the need for somebody else to do the work for us. This was all happening long before AI.
Sure.
So, and again, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that's what makes the conversation fascinating, I guess. And I think it's going to take me a while to really figure out where I land on all this. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Disney is the first studio out of the gate to sign a kind of a blanket, at least covering 200 of their major characters and iconic visuals, for an AI generative license to OpenAI. And what do you think about that? Good, bad, scary, exciting? I don't know. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we've been talking a lot, obviously, and we will continue to be talking about it because it's one of the biggest entertainment stories in decades. The coming up acquisition of Warner Brothers by Netflix, but it ain't over till it's over. Paramount is still in play here, and you never know. Comcast, NBC Universal may swoop in out of nowhere like an RKO and drop a, $200 billion bid. Who knows? The thing's not over. One of the things that we talked about in the Netflix taking over of Warner Brothers, because that's the direction they're going right now, was that there was this narrative being spread out there that Netflix was really just trying to buy Warner Brothers just to destroy movie theaters. To which we pulled out the calculators and we did the math and we said, well, if all Netflix was interested in was killing the movie theaters, you could literally buy, and we did the math on the show, the 5 top movie theater chains in North America, being AMC, Regal, Marcus, Cinemark, and Cineplex. You could buy all 5 of those, the 5 biggest movie theater chains, for $6.3 billion. You wouldn't have to spend $82 billion. You could just spend $6.3 billion, buy them all, and shut them down. If that's what they were really trying to do by purchasing Warner Brothers, they wouldn't have to spend $80 billion to do it. But conversely, and likened unto that, there is a narrative that's been going around about Paramount, that the only reason Paramount wants to get Warner Brothers is so they could shut down CNN for their master president fuckface douchleberry and just shut down CNN. And that's why they want to do it. They want to gut CNN for all political reasons. And that's why Paramount is trying to get Warner Brothers. Except it's not. Now, could getting CNN to actually shut it down be somewhere on page 7 of the itinerary? Sure, it could. But this whole thought that the only reason, the primary reason, the driving reason that Paramount wants to get Warner Brothers is just so they could shut down that news organization that their certain lord and master doesn't like, is mathematically absurd. And here's why. If Paramount just wanted Warner Brothers to shut down CNN, they don't have to spend $100 billion to do it. Because you know what Warner Brothers is planning on doing? Warner Brothers is going to split their company in 2. This is whole part of the Netflix deal. One company will be Warner Brothers Studios and HBO Max. And the other company that they're splitting off is going to be called Discovery Global, which will include things like TNT, TBS, and CNN. And you know how much that company is going to be worth once Warner Brothers splits it off? Probably like $3 billion, maybe $4 billion. Warner Brothers is saying that company is going to be worth like $3 a share. Paramount thinks it's only worth $1 a share. The bottom line is that company that is going to have CNN in it, if Paramount's only motivation was to get a hold of CNN so they could cripple it, well, they wouldn't have to spend $100 billion to buy Warner Brothers. They could just sit around, wait for about, 10 months, wait till Warner Brothers spins off that company, and then go buy that company for pennies on the dollar. So look, am I saying that Paramount's desire to own Warner Brothers has absolutely nothing to do with wanting to gut CNN? to curry favor with their overlord? Not at all. I'm not saying it's impossible. That's a part of the thought process. But this whole notion that the only reason Paramount's going after Warner Brothers so they can get their hands on CNN is just mathematically absurd. You could spend $2 or $3 billion and do that. You wouldn't have to spend $100 million. Look, think what you want about the Ellisons. And I have thoughts about the Ellisons. Think what you want about the Ellisons. You don't spend $100 billion for nothing, right? I actually do completely believe that the primary driving reason that the Ellisons want Warner Brothers, the top of the line, the top of the page reasons, page 1 of the manifesto, is because of exactly why they say. They want to put out 30 movies a year. They want to harvest one of the most legendary studios in the business. They want to be the captains of that ship. They want to add to their overall output and everything they say. I actually completely believe them because greed says we should believe them. Their own greed is a logic point about why we should believe them. I completely believe the greed is good. Greed works. They want it so they can double down on their movie business, so they can expand their media empire. All the things they're saying, that's the primary reason they're doing it. Is CNN a part of that thought somewhere down the line? I'm sure, but it's not their driving motivation. It's just not, because math says it isn't. Anyway, Rob, I know you've seen the narratives out there that Paramount just wants to get this so they can crush CNN. I'm not saying that's not the case on the 20th, 30th, or 40th priority list, but it's clearly not the reason they're going after Warner Bros. I don't know. What do you think about all that?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I do think there is an element of control in terms of, look, the problem is, as bigger and bigger concerns gobble up each other, that means we have less and less voices out in the wilderness speaking truth to power, giving us editorial content that are offering alternative points of view. I don't think, and I think that that's kind of what Paramount, like, why would Paramount and Skydance go after all this stuff? They're clearly, whether they go get TikTok, they're after creating a media empire where they can control a certain narrative, like their, whatever that narrative is, through their movies, through their television shows, through their and the more that they consolidate. So I do think that there's an element of that, but like you just pointed out, they're not going to try and buy an entire studio for $80 billion to get CNN.
You don't spend $100 to get something you can buy for $2.
No, and I mean, I'm sure if they went, if none of this was happening, and they just decided one day, and there was no merger talks at all, and they asked to go buy CNN, and that's all they were interested in, I'll bet David Zaslav's like, fine, take it. You know, I mean, it's not that at all. I mean, you have to look at the big picture, and the big picture, you got to start thinking about the long game. These people aren't buying something necessarily for the next fiscal quarter. They're thinking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. What are they doing? We're in a shifting landscape. We're not going to recognize this planet in 10 years. And there are people that are thinking in long term, and that we all have to start really not being so myopic in our own lives and look at the bigger picture, because, man, stuff is going to change faster than we can blink. So,
yeah, I heard a great analogy to it, which was simply this. If a guy really wanted to buy this beautiful, a guy loves cars, wants to get this beautiful, gorgeous steering wheel that's like a $1,000 steering wheel, he wouldn't go and buy the $75,000 car it's connected to, especially if he knows that the guy who currently owns that car is about to take it apart and sell off the individual pieces. Why would you buy the $75,000 car if all you want is the $1,000 steering wheel and you can buy it for $1,000? So that's the whole thing. And now look, am I sitting here saying that I'm team Paramount when it comes to getting Warner Brothers, and I think everything that the Ellisons are doing is pure as the white falling snow? No, I'm not. I'm just simply saying, let's keep our feet in reality here, people. You don't spend $100 billion. You don't offer $100 billion to get something you can just buy for $2 or $3 billion in a couple of months. It makes no fiscal sense. It makes no logical sense. And most importantly, it makes no mathematical sense. So whatever actual motivations are, that ain't it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about that? I mean, obviously, I just think the math doesn't work out to it. It completely eliminates it as a possibility. Maybe you see it a different way. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it has been an interesting week, so I thought, why don't we keep that going by playing a little round of one of our favorite games, Overreaction. The way Overreaction works is real simple. We just ask you guys to give us some of your hot takes. Then you guys submitted a bunch of them. Jonathan grabbed a bunch of them up together, and we're going to tell you whether your hot take is an overreaction or not. So, Jonathan, what do we got up first?
All right, Rob, going to start with you. Is this an overreaction when we hear from Hijapiro, who says Wolverine's death in Logan was way more emotional than Tony Stark's death in Endgame?
I think that is an overreaction, and I'll tell you why. For me, at least, it's seeing how other people react to death that really gets me. I mean, of course, when a character dies, usually there's nobility in it. And I feel sad, but there's also something, I don't know, they've usually triumphed. But the end of Endgame, watching that one shot where the camera was panning by everybody's face, at the funeral, that got to me. The same way that, look, when Spock died in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, I was a mess, but I didn't start blubbering until Kirk said, of all the souls I've encountered in my travels, his was the most human. Now, Wolverine, when he died, I thought he was in pain the whole movie, and he achieved greatness, and he was released from his mortal coil and his pain. And in a way, I didn't feel sorry for him. I felt sorry we're not going to see the character again, but I knew he was going to come back at some point. So I was more affected. I think it's an overreaction. But you know what, John? That's for me. Someone else might have really been affected by the death of Logan more so than I was. So I can say it was an overreaction for me. But I don't want to tell anybody else how they should feel.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's not an overreaction. And here's why, because of specifically something you just brought up, Rob. Really, the emotional impact of the death of certain characters in movies doesn't come from the characters themselves dying, but those other characters around them that are feeling the impact, right? When Tony dies in Endgame, the person there with him that's supposed to be that emotional anchor for us is Pepper. Pepper, who hardly had any presence in the MCU for many years. Pepper hasn't had a real strong presence in the MCU for a long time. We all know the story of Tony and Pepper, sure. But she kind of slips in there and says, it's okay, you can rest now. And that had impact. And it did. It had impact. It did. But with Logan, you're right. First of all, the movie itself sets up the fact that he was been just in pain. We've traveled with Hugh Jackman as that character for several decades, as a character who is tortured and tormented and suffered loss and whatever. And then to be there for his dying is this little girl who's come to see him as a father, who genetically in many ways kind of is, in a way, from a certain point of view, her father, and the one she's come to rely on, the only person she's ever now trusted, and he dies, leaving her on her own. And I think because of all those elements, I'm going to say it's not an overreaction. But I agree with you. It'll vary from person to person for sure.
Yeah.
But since they're asking us, I'll say not an overreaction. All right, what's next?
Next up, John, is this an overreaction when we hear from Skylar Ward? The Avengers Doomsday trailer could be released to the public by next weekend.
I'm going to say that's not an overreaction. Now, for the record, I do not believe it's going to be released to the public prior to Avatar coming out. I just don't. But could they do that? Absolutely. Look, today's common way of releasing a trailer is not to release it in front of a movie. You release it online first, and then it comes out in front of a movie in theaters. That's the normal operating procedure. Now, I do believe, I don't know, but I do believe they are not going to drop this trailer online. I think at least until after Avatar debuts. I think it's going to be that Thursday night, the first Avatar screenings. That's where you're going to see the Doomsday trailer. And then probably Friday or Saturday it comes out. But could they drop it between now and next weekend? Yeah, they absolutely could. So therefore, I'm going to say it's not an overreaction, even though that's not what I think is going to happen. Rob, what about you?
I don't think it's an overreaction either. I mean, I'm curious to see when they're going to drop this trailer, the biggest trailer, most important trailer ever made in the history of mankind. But I don't think it's an overreaction. I think they might wait and drop it like on Monday, maybe.
Like give it the full weekend?
Yeah, give it the weekend. Although I can't imagine, because however many people go see Avatar, let's say 5 million people go see Avatar. 105 million people are going to watch that trailer in the first 10 minutes it's out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the big venue is not the theater. Although they want to get people, the reason to keep it exclusive is to get people to go see Avatar.
Yep, 100%.
So,
all right, what's next?
All right, Rob, back to you. Is this an overreaction when we hear from Ash? The Stranger Things finale and ending is more likely to disappoint fans than please them.
I think that's not an overreaction. I mean, because when they say the end is coming, there are seldom movies that have endings as satisfying as Endgame. You know, that you really felt like this epic story came to a close. And with Stranger Things, I don't know. I mean, they'll probably kill a few people and it'll be sad, but I don't know. I mean, I think people are expecting to have their worlds rocked by this ending, and I think it might just end. So,
all right. In asking the question, is it an overreaction to say the Stranger Things finale will more likely disappoint than satisfy? That's not an overreaction at all.
Yeah, I don't.
And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Number one, here's the truth and the reality. Most television series have disappointing finales. Most of them do. It's actually quite rare. I mean, they happen and we remember them because they're rare. It like most shows do not have, I'm trying to like Star Trek's The Next Generation's ending. Like All Good Things, I still think is like the greatest finale.
Did you just bring up Star Trek?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've always thought All Good Things, the finale of Star Trek: The Next Generation, is the best series finale of all time.
And you're right. And and how does that end? It ends with Picard coming in for the very first time and joining their poker game.
Yeah, that's great.
After an epic story, but that was a great.
But
great
most
movie.
shows will have Seinfeld finales. One of the most beloved shows of all time, but people really hated it. Cheers, I thought, had a very disappointing finale. Most really good shows will have kind of disappointing finales. But here's the other more important reason why this is more likely to leave people dissatisfied and why it's not an overreaction to think that is this. All Stranger Things fans already have what they think the ending should be written in their heads.
Yeah.
And if it comes out and it's not the ending they think they should have, they're going to walk away angry. That's just fandom today. So yeah, I don't think it's an overreaction to say it is more likely that people are going to be disappointed rather than satisfied with it. Again, and that has nothing to do with the talent of the Duffer Brothers. This is about the people and whether or not they're going to get what they want. And if they don't get, specifically tuned to what their tastes are, what they want, they're going to walk away mad. All right. What's next?
Next up, John, is this an overreaction when we hear from Losonoso, who says Project Hail Mary will make less than Fall Guy despite a solid word of mouth?
That is absurdly an overreaction. That's an absurd overreaction. Look, I don't necessarily listen, not necessarily. Project Hail Mary not going to be $1 billion film. Don't get me wrong. But Fall Guy made $165 million, if I'm remembering right. Fall
181.
What's that?
181.
181. Okay,
Is
so
that worldwide?
by about
Yeah.
16 there. It made $181 million. You don't think Project Hail Mary is going to make, from Lord and Miller, a big sci-fi epic? Again, listen, I ain't saying it's going to make $900 million, but I think it is certifiable to think that this movie isn't going to make 181 million, especially if it has positive word of mouth. It's going to blow that number out of the water. I mean, it's definitely going to pass that. So yeah, I'm going to say safely that is an overreaction. Rob, what about you?
100%. Now, you've experienced what a Project Hail Mary the story is. I think the movie's going to be one of the great movies of next year. I'm all in on it. I've said it'll probably win Best Picture. I know it's tough tough. You got Spielberg, you got Christopher Nolan, you got a lot of people. But knowing the story and knowing how I was affected by it, I can only go what I was affected. It's going to be huge. It might not be $1 billion movie, but that's not many. How many movies are? But I could see it getting to 750 million. I could see it getting to 500 million. But it's going to do a lot more than 200 million worldwide because people are going to love it.
All right. What's next?
All right, Rob. Going back to you. Is this an overreaction when we hear from Just Noam L, who says by the end of the decade, 7 out of the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time will be directed by either the Russo brothers or James Cameron. So 7 out of 10.
I don't think that's an overreaction at all. Well, you've got another Avatar movie coming out, which you then would have Avatar 1, 2, and 3 and Titanic. And then you've got another Avengers movie coming out. So you've got...
Well, before the end of the decade, we have 2 more Avatar films coming out, and we have 2 more Avengers films coming out.
Yeah. So, no, it's not an overreaction at all.
Yeah, it's definitely not an overreaction. Look, is it an ironclad guarantee? No. But is it an overreaction to say that that'll be the case? Absolutely not. Look, between the Russo brothers and James Cameron, they already occupy 5 of the top 10 spots. You got Avatar. You got 3 of the top 4 are all James Cameron. You got Avatar, Avatar 2, and you got Titanic. And then you've got Avengers Endgame and Avengers Doomsday are all in the top 10. Or Avengers Infinity War are already in the top 10. So you're saying, so basically, out of Avatar 3 and 4 and out of Avengers 5 and 6, you just need 2 of those. You need 2 of those who right now, the number they need to crack is 1.6 billion. You need 2 out of those 4 to crack 1.6 billion. I think it's incredibly feasible that that happens. So automatic lock, no, but it is not an overreaction to think that 7 out of 10 will be James Cameron or Russo brother movies. All right, what's next?
All right, John, our final, not what's more likely, our final overreaction. Is this an overreaction when we hear from Reese Jones, The Odyssey or Spider-Man Brave New World will have an early screening at CinemaCon?
Ooh, you know what? It's getting to be that time of the year.
Do you think Nolan would do that?
Starting to think it. Here's the thing. There are few filmmakers out there as heart and soul dedicated to theatrical as Christopher Nolan is. Very few. Christopher Nolan has gone to CinemaCon and been at CinemaCon many times. Conversely, Sony and Disney have both fully screened movies at CinemaCon before. I mean, from Sony, we were in there and they did this shock, big surprise screening of that Ghostbusters movie. They've done Shang-Chi at it before. And in a year now, when theaters really need the help, I could absolutely... Listen, we were talking about Odyssey. We're talking about a movie that they literally put some tickets on sale a year in advance. You don't think they're mixing up the playbook a little bit in their marketing and getting the word out about it? And I could totally see Christopher Nolan wanting to bring this and present it to the movie theater owners. Say, hey, 5,000... mom and pop, big chains, whatever, movie theater owners, here's what's coming to your theaters in about 6-7 months. The Odyssey, enjoy. By April, I think he will have a cut ready to present to at least an audience like that. And they'll give what they do at CinemaCon all the time, the little speech of, now understand, not every visual effects shot is completely done. Not all the fine tuning is done. Keep that in mind when you watch this presentation. They do that at CinemaCon all the time. And again, Marvel has done this stuff before, and Sony has done this stuff before. So I don't think it's an overreaction. Again, not an iron lock guarantee, but I don't think it's an overreaction to think that at this upcoming CinemaCon, we could very well get a screening of either The Odyssey or Spider-Man Brand New Day. Rob, what do you think?
Or both.
Or both.
I totally agree with you. I mean, when The Odyssey comes out, does it come out in June or July? So CinemaCon's in April. So you're only looking. You're
We're not that far out.
The only thing that I could see that would curtail a screening of The Odyssey is he'd want to show it in IMAX, and the IMAX ratio. But they could do that. I mean, it's not.
Remember at CinemaCon, they bring in Dolby itself comes in
Right.
and sets that whole
Oh,
theater up.
the presentation in that theater is amazing.
Is insanely
It's
good.
so good. And so I could see him doing it absolutely because, I'll tell you something. Spider-Man Brand New Day is kind of a no-brainer because the Spider-Man movies they've gone up and so that's the kind of thing. Whereas the Odyssey is a little bit, if the Odyssey is a complete banger, it's a sword and sandal movie. I mean, it's a sequel to Troy, if you want to think of it that way, which is the Iliad. So it needs it. I mean, I know it's Christopher Nolan, but it still needs to. We know who Christopher Nolan is, but the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know. And it is a story. If this movie turns out to be fantastic with that cast and coming out of CinemaCon, the audience at CinemaCon, even though we're all shills, we're shills, but the theater owners are not. The theater owners look at something and go, I know if my audience in my theater is going to come see
they're
it.
the ones who decide how many screens of your movie they're going to give you.
That's right.
Which screens they're going to give you, how long they'll commit to booking your movie in their theaters. This is why it's such a big thing to the studios when they go to CinemaCon.
Yeah, and they're all there, and they're international. It's international, too. And so I think it's really important because I don't think the Odyssey is as much of a lock with general audience as because we're movie pundits.
That's why I keep trying to tell the people, Odyssey is definitely going to be a $2 billion film. Outside of something called The Batman, Christopher Nolan's never had a $1 billion film.
Yeah.
Like, just keep that in mind. Like in our circles, yes, but in the general public, it's not as much of a lot.
And it's based on an epic poem most people aren't even reading in school.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, we had to read both the Odyssey and the Iliad. Now you're like, I tell people that I jokingly say Troy is the prequel to the Odyssey, and they look at me like I'm out of my mind. I'm like, you realize Sean Bean played Odysseus in that movie. But, no one knows that. And that's kind of shocking. And that's why I don't think the Odyssey is necessarily a lock.
All right, guys. And that will wrap up today's session of Overreaction. Thank you so much to everybody who sent in their hot takes for us to adjudicate. And keep your guys' eyes open on the YouTube channel when we put out our call for the next round of either true or false, versus, what's more likely, or another game of Overreaction. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? The other day they dropped the new trailer for The Boys, the final season, and I loved it. I think it's the best trailer they ever put out. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. But it does bring up the question, because we know heading into this finale, they ain't all going to walk away. In the trailer itself, you got Mother's Milk saying, we ain't surviving this. We know there are going to be significant character deaths. And, our friends over at Slash Film, they put up an article that they wrote, an editorial they did, called The 5 Boys Characters Most Likely to Die in the Final Season, Ranked. So I thought we'd take a quick look at the ones that they think are going to die. And then I want to throw in kind of my rankings about who I think is going to die. And Rob and I will kind of give our kind of spit on that. The ones that they say over there are Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Kimiko. They're kind of lumping them all together, saying they're the 5th most likely to die. The Deep, they're saying is going to die.
Serves him right.
I got to say, The Deep is has turned out to be one of my favorite characters because, like everything else in The Boys, nothing is very black and white in The Boys. Because The Deep is such a dick. But then every once in a while, they make you feel for him a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like,
He
at the
killed his
same time-
octopus friend. He's dead. The gods have deemed it so.
But
I'm the
just like
gods.
also the start he got. So that's the great thing about The Boys. Like nothing is purely black and white. So they're saying that The Deep, Homelander, I think is a big obvious one, considering the whole point of The Boys is about the mission to kill Homelander. Billy Butcher, and they've got number 1 Firecracker. And I could see Firecracker living, as a matter of fact. I mean, let's put it this way. She's such a non-important character,
Right.
that her dying doesn't really move the needle one way or the other. I just want to throw out, before we get into like guys like Billy Butcher, Homelander, the rest of the boys, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, Kimiko, I want to throw out a couple of names that they did not mention. All right. First one I want to throw out here is the big obvious one, and the one that I think would have the most emotional impact. Hugh. Now, I get it. Well, see, John, in the original comics, listen, they've already shown they're not sticking to the original comics. Some things they do, a lot of things they don't. Spoiler alert, Black Noir is not Homelander's clone. So there you go. Big difference already. I think having him die at the end, he says something in the trailer. It's like, okay, if you don't think you can do this fight, I'll fight for both of us. That almost sounds a little bit like a setup. Like he's going to die fighting the good fight. What started the show, which was him having his girlfriend killed, it ends with him avenging it all and him himself dying. I think Huey's has to be a name that you keep in mind, is definitely one of the ones that could die, because it would have huge emotional impact. And look, I could see him living too, but I think that's one you got to keep in mind. Another name I want to throw out there, A-Train. A-Train has turned into be one of the most fascinating characters to me. He's had a very interesting character journey in all this, being the guy that starts off all the events of the boys by being the one who admittedly accidentally kills Hugh's girlfriend. And he's kind of becomes the poster child of the obliviousness of these soups, that they don't really pay much attention to the sufferings of the mere mortals around them, right? But as this show has progressed year over year, he starts to change. He's sees things happen to him that have slowly started to alter him and change him. To the end of season 4, he's now on the boys' side. And I think him dying off and having that big hero death would be satisfying, I think would be earned. And also, because of his whole character arc and journey, I think it would also have emotional payoff. So I think A-Train is one of the people that we have to look at as well. The last name I'm going to throw out there, I'm surprised I don't hear more people mentioning on the death list. Starlight. I think, listen, Starlight, if you watch The Boys and then you watch Gen V, Starlight has kind of become, whereas Homelander is the face of one side of this conflict, Starlight has become the face of the other side of the conflict, right? And her whole relationship with Hugh and all that kind of stuff has been pushing this. And I think we're going to see her get more powerful in season 5. And I don't think it's ultimately going to come down between her and Homelander. I don't think it's going to be her and Homelander now fighting it out and she kills him, whatever. I don't think that. But again, big hero death, huge impact on Hugh. This will just be like compounding his loss. This will be the second love interest to him that he loses in this whole thing. It could have huge payoff for that. So I think she's the name you got to have in there as well. I want to throw in one bonus name. A guy who has become one of my favorite characters in the show in a very short amount of time. Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy. Whether it's, I don't know if him and Homelander ultimately kill each other. I don't know if he ultimately does start working with his quote unquote son. I don't know if his grandson is the one who ultimately takes him out. I don't even know what they're doing with the kid, to be honest with you, in this round that we go. But I know two things. One, I do want to see more of Soldier Boy because he's awesome and he's hilarious. But two, I think it's a really good chance that whether it's Butcher that knocks him off, Homelander's kid that knocks him off, Homelander that knocks him off, Starlight knocks him off, I don't know. I think there's a pretty good possibility that we see him get killed in this. And so, yeah, look, I like a lot of the names that Slasham put out there because now we got to talk about the two obvious ones that everybody agrees are high on the list. Homelander and Butcher. Now, I won't talk about what happens with Butcher in the comics because I don't think they're doing it, but just in case they do, I don't want to spoil anything here. But listen, for Butcher, it would be, as far as Butcher is concerned, the moment he lost his wife, and I don't mean when she dies in the show, but I mean from the moment he lost her, which is, before the beginning of the show, I think he has seen his entire life as one long suicide mission to get rid of Homelander. And I think there was a lot of poetry to giving him that ending. Like, this has always been, to Billy Butcher, this whole show has always been a one-way trip, which is to confront, kill Homelander, and probably die in the process. And I think there is a very high possibility that that is the way this show ends. I think it's going to end with Billy and Homelander going one-on-one, and that's how I think this thing's going to end. Maybe not one-on-one, but I think that's
what about Billy's son?
Well, you mean Homelander's son?
Well, yeah, yeah.
They're shared. This kid that they have a shared affection for. Well, let me get to that in a second. Let me then move on to Homelander. Homelander, to me, it is a 100% guarantee. Now, there is the option that, he ends up depowered and put in prison, or likened unto his genetic dad, Soldier Boy, he ends up in a stasis thing, frozen in a Russian gulag to whatever forever. But I honestly think he gets it. I think they punch his ticket. I think he dies in it. So that's the big two, Butcher and Homelander. The kid lives. I think the kid lives, and I think he ushers in a new golden age. I think they say that this kid is the one who will usher in a new golden age. I think ultimately Billy will get through to him because he's still very formative. I mean, look, he made some really odd choices at the end of season 4, but he's still at that age, and I think Billy will get through to him. He's still Billy's wife's son. And I could be totally wrong about that. I mean, they could end the show with maybe Butcher and Homelander and Soldier Boy and Starlight. They all have to team up to fight Homelander's kid. Maybe that's the way they go. I don't know. But that's kind of the way I see it playing out. Rob, who do you got on your death list? Some of the names that we mentioned. Do you have any other names that we didn't? What do you think?
Well, no, I mean, these are obviously the main characters. I think that, look, I wouldn't be surprised if everybody dies except Homelander. And at the end of the show, he's the king of the cinder that Earth has become with some great conflict, because they've been building to a global conflict the whole series, with the military takeover and all this. And I could see the boys ending that way. However, these characters are beloved characters. Now, I want to see Frenchie and Kimiko.
Kimiko, yeah.
I want them to live. I want them to have. She deserves it, and he deserves it. I hope they don't die. I want to see them live. I want them to have a happy ending. I think that you're absolutely right. I think Butcher has to die, but I'm gonna believe that Butcher's death is what makes their son turn on his father, because it's so, the whole Arthur Mordred idea of this spawn turning on, ultimately redeeming themselves. Because if he doesn't, the kid either has to die or have a full-on redemption, I think. And I think it'd be cool. I mean, it'd be cool if he ended up killing his father after Homelander finally kills Butcher, or Butcher goes out.
Remember, that was one of the subplots of the show, was to get the kid to kill Homelander.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they could fulfill that story thread.
Yeah, I mean, I think Billy Butcher has to die. I'd like to see, in terms of the other characters like A-Train and all those characters, I think there's also going to be an element of this show, because of the kind of show it is, where Vought is going to go on. They're not going to destroy Vought and take Vought out. I think Giancarlo Esposito.
I was going to say, that brings up Stan Edgar.
Yeah,
that brings up that other character, right?
Because you know what? Stan's too smart.
Yep.
He must go on. He will pivot. Vought gets taken down, but Stan doesn't. That's what I should say. They'll take, and because Stan's got to continue, because that's the way it works. So, and then the idea is he's gonna start over and build it again. What has happened before will happen again, just like the end of Battlestar Galactica.
But let me throw out one other name, because we've kind of been ignoring, and when we shouldn't, because they are clearly tying in. Marie from Gen V. I mean, like, from that moment where they're hinting that she could become more powerful than Homelander and all that kind of stuff.
I could see her continuing on.
I don't see her as a prime candidate to be knocked off, to be honest with you. I think she's a character that survives.
I don't either. But I could see her and Giancarlo Esposito building something new.
One might think. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think Who do you think is going to get their ticket punched in the final season of The Boys? Who do you think is definitely going to survive? Because don't forget, The Boys may be ending, but The Boys universe continues. So whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we've been talking a little bit, maybe even a little bit too much to some degree, about that whole interview with Quentin Tarantino, where out of nowhere, for no reason, unprompted, unsolicited, nobody was asking him about actors he doesn't like, just decided to haul off and completely attack Paul Dano. And while he was at it, throw guys like Matthew Illard and Owen Wilson under the bus as well. Again, and you know what? I've gotten a lot of these brain dead people who just don't listen say, well, doesn't Quentin Tarantino get to have an opinion? Of course he does. Absolutely, Quentin Tarantino gets to have an opinion. And if some interviewer was cruel enough to sit down, Mr. Tarantino, can you list off some actors for us right now, some popular actors that you don't think are very good? And he answered the question. I would still think it's a little petty, but I would get it. I mean, sure, he's answering a question. Nobody asked Quentin Tarantino what he thought about Paul Dano. Nobody asked Quentin Tarantino. He was being asked about his favorite movies of the decade or since the 2000s, whatever. And he just decided out of nowhere to not just say Paul Dano sucks, he's weak sauce, he's the worst actor in Hollywood. And he just hauled off to the point that I don't really believe that Quentin Tarantino believes that. I believe there's clearly something very personal about this. Like, again, I don't know if Dano accidentally slept with his sister or if Dano, ran over his dog or something, but there's clearly something very personal. Anyway, since that time, we've seen a lot of people coming to Paul Dano's defense. We talked about James Gunn coming to his defense. We saw, one of his co-stars who played the kid in There Will Be Blood come to his defense. Well, now the GOAT, the King of Kings, Daniel Day-Lewis himself has kind of come out. Now, there was an Instagram account attributed to Daniel Day-Lewis that came out and said, Paul Dano is one of the greatest actors of this generation. The problem with that is Daniel Day-Lewis didn't write that. It was written by a fan who ran the account. But Daniel Day-Lewis's representative came out and said, oh, but we agree with that. This comes us from the folks over at The Guardian. He says, however, this is after it came clear that it was the person who ran the account, not Daniel Day-Lewis, who said Paul Dano is one of the greatest actors of our generation. Said, however, Day-Lewis's representatives added that the actor, who's the one who suggested Paul Dano for the role in There Will Be Blood, endorsed the sentiment. The single greatest of all time, the Bret the Hitman Hart of acting, the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. Daniel Day-Lewis says, I endorse the statement that Paul Dano is one of the great actors of our generation. And I'm sorry, but that's the mic drop. That's the mic drop. Sorry, the greatest actor of all time has just come out and endorsed this guy. Period. End of sentence. Day is done. And I kind of like the fact, again, look, everybody knows I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino fan.
Me too.
I've had to repeat that every time the story comes up. I cannot wait to see whatever his next movie is going to be. Out of all of his movies, there's only ever been one I didn't like. And even Steven Spielberg has a movie or two I don't like. I think he's one of the greats. I love Quentin Tarantino, but this was a real cheap ass, weak sauce thing for him to do, to just unprovokedly throw a guy under the bus, just attack him savagely and call him the worst actor in Hollywood for no reason whatsoever. He wasn't asked about it. It wasn't the topic of the conversation. He just decided, yeah, that's a really good diet soda. While we're talking about diet soda, just let me say your mom's a whore. It's like it was unprovoked out of nowhere.
That's what
right?
I thought, yeah.
And it's really cool to see other people in the industry come to Paul Dano's and others' defense. But I think it says something particularly good when his co-star, the greatest actor of all time, comes out and says, yeah, I endorse the statement that he's one of the great actors of our generation, because Paul Dano is one of our great actors. Look, it's all subjective. You may not necessarily have to think Paul Dano's a great actor if you don't want to. That's totally fine. It's all subjective. You're not right or wrong. But to call him the worst actor in Hollywood was
The worst
clearly,
actor in SAG, too.
yeah, in all that mean not just more than just Hollywood, in the entire industry. That clearly crossed the line. There's something personal there. And to have the greatest of all time come out and say, oh, no, he's really, really good. I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, Rob, we don't often hear anything from Daniel Day-Lewis or his representatives or anything ever give comment about anything. What did you think about this statement coming out?
Well, I think, look, I think it's classy. I mean, to come out and say, you know, the old adage, if you can't say something nice, and what has perplexed me, John, about this whole thing is Quentin Tarantino is very media savvy. He's been talking to the press since the early 90s. He's gone on every talk show known to man. He's done every kind of podcast known to man. He's doing his own podcast with Roger Avery, who I also like very much. Roger Avery needs to make another movie. But I don't understand why he said this. Quentin Tarantino, I really don't. And to see people come out and rally around them, especially Paul Dano, and seeing the way people are doing it, you know, it's fun. I loved how Brian Fuller and David Dismalchin and Matthew Lillard turned it into a honorary moment for Matthew Lillard, but also to promote Dust Bunny, which opens today, and everybody should go see it in the theater. And Matthew Lillard's not even in Dust Bunny, you know, and it was cool seeing friends coming together to do that. I think it's great, and to have Daniel Day-Lewis come out and say, look, man, I had a great experience working with my fellow colleague. And when you look at Quentin Tarantino, who, by the way, is very beloved by multiple generations of people, and you know who loves Quentin Tarantino? Actors. Actors love working with him on his movies because he writes them such great parts. I mean, I want to see Sam Jackson weigh in. I want to see what he has to say about this, because to me, it's really disappointing, because I really love Quentin Tarantino, and I'm like, you know better than this. You're a media savvy dude. What did you think was going to happen? Now people, for no reason at all, you've made people hate you. And I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, again, to me, it's the whole scenario that it just came out of nowhere. Nobody asked him about it. Like, again, man, I can't emphasize this enough, because so many people miss the point. If he was asked about it, if it was the topic of conversation, if they were doing a breakdown of the career of Paul Dano and they asked Quentin Tarantino to weigh in, I would still think it's a little petty, maybe a bit classless to go to not just say, I don't think that guy's very good, but to haul off and make negative comment after negative comment after negative comment after negative comment about him. But at least then you could say, well, he was asked and he just gave his opinion. Fair enough. But context means everything. And this was a context where Paul Dano had nothing to do with the conversation. And he just decided to turn the entire conversation to one big hit piece on Paul Dano. Again, I stand by it that there is clearly something personal here. Clearly something personal. And again, as somebody who is a years long, anybody who've watched my show, you guys know I am a decades long fan of Quentin Tarantino. Like a family member, I'm just disappointed in him. I was really disappointed. And you're right. He made people dislike him for no reason whatsoever.
No, and you know what else? He's also, Quentin Tarantino's a populist. He loves movies. Now, if you love movies, you can't look at Owen Wilson in something like Zoolander or Bottle Rocket or Wedding Crashers and not think he's great in those roles. He was great in those roles. He was great in Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris.
Oh, I was going to say, that's one nobody brings up with Owen Wilson.
And the thing is, Quentin Tarantino knows that. Now, I can understand Matthew Lillard's performances can be a little mannered, but in Scream, come on. Scream is a great movie, and the reveal in Scream is great because it's him, because it's Matthew Lillard is one of those, you know. And would you want to have someone else playing that part? I wouldn't.
He was great at SLC Punk.
He was great in SLC Punk.
And by the way, this is not a referendum on whether or not Paul Dano is indeed a good actor, or whether or not you think Owen Wilson is indeed a good actor, or Matthew Lillard is indeed a good actor. That's not the point. The point is, these guys just got thrown under the bus for no reason by one of the most popular directors in Hollywood for no reason whatsoever. And it's really nice to see so many other people who are their peers, including the single greatest actor in the history of the medium, come out to their defense as well. So
And
it's
so
good to see.
you see that there's more of a community than people realize. We're not just all evil coastal elites. People are actually nice. They weren't making any money to come out and rally around their friends. They were doing it. It was legitimate, and you could see that people were really upset about it.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? We don't often hear anything from Daniel Day-Lewis or his representatives who have come out and said, oh yeah, Daniel completely endorses the statement that Paul Dano is one of the great actors of his generation. I mean, you don't have to think that he is, but I think it's pretty interesting that the GOAT of all time has come out and said that. Anyway, whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? Rob, I don't know that in my lifetime, I can recall a major motion picture from one of the biggest directors and filmmakers in the world had a movie coming out in 6 months that we knew nothing about. But that is kind of the case right now with the upcoming Steven Spielberg film that's set to come out on June 12th. And we still don't know nothing. There are reports going around that it's some kind of a UFO movie, but it needs to be stated here, Steven Spielberg ain't ever said that. The studio never said it was a UFO movie.
Does the studio even know what it's about?
I don't even know if the studio knows about it. I've been told, and I can't verify the veracity of this, I've been told that the head of the studio, Donna Langley, has not been allowed to see the dailies of this film. When does that ever happen? Now, maybe that's not true. I'm just saying that's what I've been told, that Donna Langley herself has not seen the dailies of this movie. But we've gotten our first peek when this billboard has popped up in New York City, and apparently they've started to pop up in other places as well. An upside down eye that looks like it's from The Ring with the words, "All will be disclosed, Spielberg, June 12th, 2026. Spielberg, 2026. Now, a couple things. And Rob and I were talking about this before the show. So it's some pasty white human eye upside down. I don't know why I don't hear more people saying the obvious. The silhouette is of a bird.
Yeah.
So that's clearly something that's going to have some kind of significance to this. I think the title is revealed in there when it says all will be disclosed. I think the title is going to be disclosed or disclosure. One of the two. I think the title's going to be, I don't know that.
They already made a movie called Disclosure.
We've had other movies with the same title, so who knows? But nobody's told me this, no insider information. I'm just guessing the title will be called Disclosed, but we'll see. Here is my out there theory. Way out there, right out in left field. This is the long shot. I don't think this is a UFO movie at all. I think this is Spielberg remaking the Alfred Hitchcock classic, The Birds. That, again, I never thought that till I saw this poster. Admittedly, it is way far out there. I would not put any money on that. I'm thinking it's a remake of The Birds, or very well could be an alien abduction film of some kind. Anyway, Rob, we got this poster now. It's adding to the intrigue and to the mystery. What do you think about the billboard? What things are you picking out of it? And what kind of thoughts do you have about this movie right now?
Well, I'd say at first glance, this is a deep cut. I'm like Klaus Maria Brandauer in Mephisto 2. That's what I was thinking. If you've seen Mephisto, anyway, I know nobody knows what I'm talking about. But so here's what we have heard, not just the Donna Langley news, but I heard a year ago talked about it from somebody that was thought that the level of secrecy around this movie was strange. Was talking to a friend of theirs that they're casual with, their friends with, but this person couldn't reveal anything. Like there's military secret grade NDAs around this movie. Because even the people that are in this movie, you would never know. They haven't mentioned anything anywhere. There's been nothing about this movie if you do searches on it. Even if you go to Wikipedia, It's like Steven Spielberg's untitled movie. If you look everywhere, it's so wild. And if he was remaking The Birds, why keep that a secret? That'd be interesting. If I heard that Steven Spielberg was remaking The Birds, I'm like, yeah, bring that on. That'd be cool. Why keep that a secret? You know, unless there's
Because
something.
it builds the mystery, it builds the intrigue.
But the intrigue has gone all the way back to when this movie started being made.
Yeah.
And there's other things that are very strange about this. See, John, I want to believe that Steven Spielberg has been working for disclosure, to reveal the existence of extraterrestrials and UAPs and all that since he made Close Encounters in '77. You know, he made E.T. to soften up the idea that aliens but they had to wait. They had to wait for it to permeate culture. So that's what I want to choose, even though this is probably not true either, is that Steven Spielberg's movie is how they're going to release this knowledge to the world. That the movie is so secret because it's all true.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Come on, man.
No.
Wouldn't that be cool if it was, though? No, I'm curious to know because, look, we just got Catch Me If You Can and Minority Report were released on 4K this week. You know, and both of those movies are not necessarily top-tier Spielberg, but Catch Me If You Can and Minority Report are both great, and you can see why he's the GOAT. It doesn't matter what he's working in. Catch Me If You Can is wildly entertaining, along with Bridge of Spies. You know, he had this period where he made these movies that were not giant blockbusters, but they were all so watchable. Lincoln being my favorite of all that era. But I just think that anything Spielberg's doing, I mean, to bring him back into I'm in. And if it's about disclosure, I don't care if it's about crows. I don't care if it's the birds. Whatever it is, I will watch anything Steven Spielberg directs because he's one of the greatest film directors of all time. The man was born understanding where to put a camera, and no one could block a scene like Steven Spielberg can. And by the way, lest we forget, John, we're getting another John Williams score out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is probably like the most exciting thing about this whole project to me is that we're getting that. By the way, I want to throw this out there too. You know me, I don't think he's I think Steven Spielberg is de facto the greatest filmmaker of all time. And one of the reasons for that is because he can do every kind of movie. He's not like some of the greatest other filmmakers of all time who very much have one kind of movie they can do, right? Spielberg has done it all. Like, and again, bring up Quentin Tarantino again, bring this up. In the conversation about the greatest movies of the 21st century, even Quentin Tarantino put West Side Story on that list. I think West Side Story, this is a movie that I mocked Steven Spielberg and the studio for even thinking about doing it. And I mocked it all the way up to the day it came out and I saw it and I went, I got to take it all back. That movie was freaking brilliant. That movie was fabulous. I couldn't believe how good that movie was.
I've been waiting for him to do a musical number since 1941 in the opening of Temple of Doom.
Anything goes. Like, seriously, he's just that guy. He can do everything. Spielberg, you know, a musical. All right, I'll make one of the best musicals ever. Boom. And then he does. I mean, that's just what he does. So, listen, I am starting to get really excited about this. I can't believe we are now this close to it and we still know so little.
I love that.
But get ready, guys. Here comes The Birds, the musical edition, coming out June of 2026.
We're also supposed to get, word has come out that, they always drop a poster or some kind of advertising before the trailer. We are supposed to get a trailer. I mean, Universal's making this, and they're putting out that Odyssey trailer.
Look, I'll tell you right now, they're gonna put a trailer to this in front of Avatar.
Yeah.
They're going to portray it. And then maybe some questions will get answered. More questions will be raised, but some questions will be answered.
I bet it's going to be a very enigmatic, whatever it is, it's going to be very enigmatic. And you believe they're going to give us the title.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad marketing to not let people know the title. So if you're going to start the marketing now, they're going to tell us the title.
Do you think the movie's going to be called Disclosure?
No, I think it's going to be Disclosed.
Okay.
I think it'll be Disclosed. Again, no insider information. That's just me as a fan guessing, just purely guessing. But I think it'll be Disclosed. But we'll see. Guys, question is for you. What did you think about this new billboard for this secret of secrets Steven Spielberg film that's popped up in New York City? Yeah, I think it's actually pretty cool. But what is it? What will it mean? We'll find out soon. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, it happened. It came out. The trailer for Supergirl has now come out and is out in the wild, running around. And people are watching it. And look, I got to tell you, I've been very excited for this film. I loved the cameo at the end of Superman. Loved the cameo. I love the way she played it. And if you've ever read, Woman of Tomorrow, it's pretty damn consistent with what we're getting. If you understand what the attitude is and all that kind of stuff, I thought it was great. The fact that we're getting Jason Momoa as Lobo, the role he's always wanted to play, is pretty cool. And I've been excited for this trailer. And the trailer came out, and to huge fanfare as well, as we suspected, Rob. You and I talked about this the other day. We said, whatever else the trailer is, we're going to get crypto in it. Well, they one-upped it, and they start the trailer with crypto. And it's the big topic of conversation. Rob, you had a chance to see this trailer. What are your thoughts on the Supergirl trailer?
I don't want to harsh anyone's mellow, but I didn't dig it. I mean, when I say I didn't dig it, what I mean is I don't think this was a particularly great trailer. I did like what it showed us. I mean, the bottled city of Kandor, more of the Kryptonians. There's a lot, and knowing the comic, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in it. But you know what? I don't think it did a very good job conveying what the movie is going to be. Having read the storyline, it seemed a little kind of disjointed.
Now, granted, remember, we have this conversation all the time.
Yeah.
It is a first trailer.
It is.
The first trailers for the vast majority of movies don't give too much as far as story goes.
No, but I still think the trailer does have to work as a... I just thought it was all over the place. It was showing you, like, it would give you these spectacle shots, but then it's not tied into anything else. You see these people walk, they're showing you a lot of these things, but you don't really, if you haven't read the comic, you kind of are like, what does this have to do with Supergirl herself? I mean, this is just me. And I watched the trailer like 3 times, and it's fine. It's a good trailer. I love her. Millie Alcott's, you can tell she's great. I just wanted more of her in the trailer. I liked her when she was talking, and I loved how they ended it. When she makes that comment, he thinks there's good in everybody or whatever.
He sees the good in everybody. I see the truth.
That's
a great line.
That's great. And I would have liked it if she was talking that whole time, and it was like the conversation with the girl she goes on the adventure with. I forget her name.
Ruthie.
Ruthie. And that whole thing could have been, like, you could have started with that conversation and then ended with that. But it was good. It was fine. I mean, I like the fact that it has kind of a consistent look with Superman. It looks, and then when you get into these alien environments, and look, I think all the alien environments, all that stuff look really cool. And we did see our villain. We got that great moment with the heavy from the story, and you got that one quick cameo of Lobo. But I'm in.
For those of you who don't know, this is primarily based on the graphic novel Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Not that we think they're going to follow it beat by beat, but the general gist of that story is Supergirl, kind of teams up with this girl, Ruthie, I believe is her name, that we see in the thing. She's the one who pulls out the sword, who's on this quest to get vengeance on the guy who murdered her, I believe her parents. And he's the guy you see with all the bolts in his face and like gets big close up on the screen. That him. So
Yep.
Now how much of that they're going to bring in, we'll find out. Rob, I have to say, I kind of agree with you. I didn't love the trailer. Now, I still believe this movie's going to be awesome. And this trailer does nothing to dissuade me of that. I think the movie's going to be great. I mean, this is coming from the guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the guy who directed I, Tonya.
It is.
Which was one of the best films in the world the year that came out. This guy is a great director.
And great with female characters.
Oh, amazing with female characters. And so I fully believe this movie's going to be awesome. And I believe we got the little tastes in the trailer for the reasons I think the movie's going to be awesome. But that also leans into why I didn't think they did all that great of a job with the trailer. First of all, I thought it was a terrible choice of music. Like, nobody is saying that that's not a great song. Of course it's a great song. But I don't think it fit the trailer at all.
Or her character.
Well, it may fit her character. It may very well fit her character. But let me elaborate on this a little bit. When they put out the first Superman trailer, I really do think it needed to be orchestral. I really do. Not all movies do. Absolutely not. Not all comic book movies do. But I think it would have done well to do that. And I get it. Maybe they wanted to juxtapose Superman a little bit from Supergirl. So instead of the classic orchestral music that we got in the Superman trailer, even with the electric guitar, all that kind of stuff, and then want to do something more with it, I just thought it was the wrong song choice. Also, and this is the thing, I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day about kind of what I hope they do in this trailer to juxtapose Superman from Supergirl. They touch on it briefly in the trailer when Ruthie asked her what was it like to see you lose everything in a day. It's that the gods weren't so kind that it didn't die in a day, where we get to see Argo survive the destruction of Krypton, but it clearly also then went on to have a slow death. I've always thought one of the key differences between Kal-El and Kara is the fact that while they both come from a lost world, a world that's been destroyed, Kal didn't lose anything. Superman came to Earth as a baby. He grows up to find out he lost his parents. Okay. Kara lost everything. She lost her mother, her father, her best friends, her other pets, her schoolmates, her city, her world. She lost everything, and she has to carry that trauma around with her wherever she goes. And clearly that's part of what makes her who she is. I think that's why she is the way she is. And I really would have liked to have seen the trailer lean into that a little bit.
I agree.
And I just think there was an opportunity to do that a little bit. Also, I hear some people complaining, we needed more Lobo. Hold your horses. We'll get to Lobo. There are more trailers to come. We'll get to Lobo. I'm perfectly happy that we just got the slightest glimpse of Lobo.
But he looks awesome.
And he's going to look great. I'm perfectly okay that we only got a quick glimpse of Lobo because I know we're going to get big, healthy doses of Lobo later. So everything from, I don't think it was the right choice of music, to, I think without giving too much plot away, just lean into the character then. Lean a little bit more into the fact that this is how she differs from Superman. And again, I agree with you. The ending, chef's kiss perfection. He sees the beauty in everybody. I see the truth. Love that line. That was a terrific ending to the trailer. Again, Rob, this trailer does something that very, very few trailers I've ever seen do. It just makes me even more convinced that the movie's going to be really good, while at the same time not thinking the trailer was all it could have been.
Right. Yeah.
And that's weird. Normally, if you don't like a trailer all that much, it lessens your anticipation of the movie. For me, it's kind of like, yeah, this movie is going to be great, but I just feel like they could have done a better job with the trailer. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, as someone who I've cut trailers in my life, and a trailer is like a pop song version of a movie. And a trailer still has to take you as a viewer on some kind of a journey. There's a build. There's a structure to a trailer. I felt this trailer was very unstructured. It felt to me like there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this trailer, and everybody was throwing in their 2 cents worth, and it lacked a look. A great trailer editor is like a filmmaker unto themselves. And I felt like the same way I don't think any of the Superman trailers were particularly great compared to other trailers we've seen. And this felt like it had the same issue. And which is perplexing to me, because I would always look, when I worked in cutting trailers and promos, I would always look to the great trailers and be like, we got to make it more like that. And this felt there was not much of a direction there. It didn't take me on a journey the way a trailer should. And again, I think you do have to keep in mind that first trailers are really more supposed to just be teases, give you a little taste. I just like the... But a taste is to give us the character. All we know is this girl, and not everyone liked the portrayal of Supergirl in that at the end of Superman. And I really liked her, and I liked her. That was the thing I wanted to know. Am I going to like Millie Alcott as Supergirl? This trailer did convince me. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna love her.
I became convinced of that the moment she walked into the Fortress of Solitude at the end of Superman. And this trailer again makes me go, yep, this is going to be a great character. And boy, was Millie Alcock the right person to get for it. By the way, let me be very clear here. I don't hate the trailer at all.
No.
I honestly was just hoping, like, that first Superman trailer, when it hit, again, it gave nothing away. It made me feel, you know what I mean? And this trailer didn't do that the way the Superman trailer did for me. And I didn't like the song choice, which, permeated through the entire trailer really. And that's hard, Rob. Like, even if the trailer was really good, and you know what? I wonder how I would have felt about the trailer if it was exactly the same, but it was just the right piece of music instead. Because that music permeates the entire trailer.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point of the trailer that you get to experience without the wrong song being played. So I wonder if I might feel totally different. I think it's fair to ask if I might feel totally differently if it was just a different piece of me. Either way, I don't hate the trailer. I think there's some really good stuff in it. Again, the ending of it with that line, chef's kiss, beautiful. I was just kind of hoping it would have more of an impact on me like and under the first Superman trailer. That's all. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about the new Supergirl trailer? It's what everybody's talking about here today. And I certainly think there are some gold nuggets in it. I was just kind of hoping for a better overall trailer. I still think the movie's going to be great, though. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're now going to move on to take the most important part of our show, which is your live comments and questions. But before we do, two quick things we got to do. First is say goodbye to writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett. Great job as always, my friend. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow, John. Remotely.
And, yeah, that's right. And of course, we need to take a moment here and thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show, our friends at Aura. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Aura. Guys, if you are anything like me, you swear every year you're going to be on top of your Christmas shopping, and then suddenly it's December 20th, the shelves are empty, and you're standing around in Target asking yourself, does my aunt even like candles? But this year, I am not doing that because of Aura Frames. It's completely saved me. See, I always struggled with what to get people in my life, but this year I'm going to give out a couple of Aura Frames, and it's hands down the most personal, meaningful gift that I can possibly give. And here's the best part. Aura lets you upload unlimited photos and videos. Plus, the frame comes in a premium gift box with no price tag, so it feels like a classy, well thought out gift, even if you bought it last minute. Guys, you can't gift wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code CAMPEA at the checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code Campea. This deal is exclusive to our listeners and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in on time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning that we sent you at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And thank you to our friends at Aura for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, it's that time of the show. We're going to get over and start taking your live comments and questions. I'm going to let you guys know, though, if you have a thought, theory, opinion, question you want us to answer, go ahead and throw it in quickly, because I'm actually going to turn off the super chats. We've got a lot of them in there already. We're going to turn off the super chats in about a minute. So if you do have one you want to get in the last second, go ahead and do that now, but then they will be turned off. All right. What we got up here first, Jonathan?
First up, Terrence Fisher says, Crypto, the Wong connective tissue of the DCU.
Yeah, Crypto is like the Nick Fury. If Crypto pops up in the Lantern show, which I am not expecting. But yeah, listen, it made sense. You know, if you saw the end of Superman, it made sense that Crypto would end up being in Supergirl. And everybody wants to see Crypto in Supergirl. So I'm glad we get to see Crypto in there. All right, what's next?
Next up, we got, where's my scroll here? Come on. The Neo Braveheart. I didn't like the Supergirl. What the heck? I didn't like the Supergirl was drunk in Superman. Fast forward to Supergirl trailer. Me to myself. Of course she's drunk. We watched all of her loved
Why
ones.
don't you try reading that again? Like, read it right from the top again.
See, I just got hammered. Neo Braveheart. I didn't like that Supergirl was a drunk in Superman. Fast forward to Supergirl trailer to me to myself. Of course she's a drunk. She watched her whole loved ones and everyone on her planet die.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about it, is that I think that's the key thing about Supergirl that they need to convey through all the marketing and for us to get as the viewers, is that's the big difference between, yeah, they both came from Krypton, but Kal-El did not watch his family die. Kal-El did not see his world end. Kal-El did not lose everything. As far as Kal-El knew growing up, he was from Earth. Growing up, that was his world. That's what he knew. He later learned he lost everything. Kara experienced losing everything. And listen, we've seen movies where our protagonists are these dark and gritty, broken and jagged characters because they lost their wife or they lost their brother. She lost everything, her world. And and I love that plays into who she is now as a character and why she is the way she is. And I really do hope they lean more into that as they go forward. All right, what's next?
We got next up, Johnny Got Lost. The teaser looks cool. I like how different it looks from Superman. I'm hyped for Lobo, and the comic this movie is based on is great. Hope movie is too.
Yeah, the comic is wonderful. If you haven't read the comic, I mean, I had started reading it at some point. I never got around to it. And then after they announced the movie and they mentioned what it was going to be based on, that's when I went back and I read the story all the way through for the first time. And it's really good. Now, again, most comic book movies, even if they're named after a certain comic book story run and they take elements from it, they very rarely follow it super closely. Civil War is nothing like the comic book Civil War. Days of Future Past is very different from the comic version of Days of Future Past. So it'll be interesting to see how much of it they bring into it, but it's got a lot going for it, and I'm getting more excited for the movie. All right, what's next?
Neo Braveheart also follows him, says the last line of the trailer was perfect. He sees the good in everyone. I see the truth. Best way to describe who Supergirl is as a person.
Yeah, again, it was not just because it's a great line, and it is a great line, but it's not just because it's a great line, but it's what that line accomplishes. It's like, how is this not just another copy of Superman with boobs? How's this not just that? Well, the line accomplishes a massive difference between the two. We are fundamentally different characters. Yeah, we can both fly and shoot lasers out of our eyes, but we are totally different characters. And this one line kind of sums it up. And I thought it was great. It kind of harkened back to that line in Superman where Lois is talking to him and says, you see everybody and you think everyone is beautiful. And he says, that's so this line kind of harkens back to that, but she also sets up the dichotomy between Superman and herself. He sees the good in everyone. I see the truth. And that's pretty much all you need to know. And I that's why I thought that line was so good.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
James Hoffman says, the Supergirl trailer makes me excited to see her team up with Superman. I think their different personalities would work well off each other.
Yeah, listen, from the moment she showed up in the fortress, I'm like, I want to see a whole movie with these two together. Because the way they differ from each other, I think would be very entertaining to watch. So I 100% think we're going to get a Superman cameo in this movie, but then they'll build us up to actually seeing the two of them together a little bit later down the line. All right, what's next?
Reggie Phoenix says, hoping we get a scene with Kara and Lois meeting.
Nah, I don't think we're going to see Lois in this one. I don't know that we're not going to see her in this one, but from what I understand, an extremely tiny amount of this movie happens on Earth. I think like 99% of the movie happens off Earth. So I wouldn't expect to see Lois in this one, but we'll get to see them meet eventually. All right, what's next?
Robert says, loved the Supergirl trailer. Looks awesome with some Guardians of the Galaxy vibe sprinkled in. Can't wait to see a full look at Lobo in action. Also, I think Tremel Tillman will be great pick to voice V.
So, oh, sorry, I forgot. What was the first thing they said there?
Had Guardians of the Galaxy look. Can't wait to see the full look of Lobo.
I mean, listen, there's definitely some Guardians of the Galaxy vibes in there, but one of the things that I really recognize today, like after the trailer dropped, one of the things I really recognize, there are still a lot of people out there who think James Gunn wrote or directed this movie. And I think it's very important to understand James Gunn neither wrote nor directed this film.
Yeah.
He didn't write it or direct it. Sure, as a producer, I'm sure he had some influence on it, as did Peter Safran, as did whatever. But it's like when you watch, what's a good example? When you watch Black Panther, say, wow, that's a Kevin Feige movie. Well, Kevin had some influence on it. He's the producer and the head of the studio, but that was Ryan Coogler's movie. Mm-hmm. The same is true here. But yeah, there definitely are some Guardians of the Galaxy vibes in that, but I think that's a good approach considering where it takes place. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Reggie Phoenix says, have you seen Eternity yet? If so, thoughts? I do want to see that.
I want to see it. I remember that's been on my list ever since we saw the preview for it at CinemaCon back in April. And obviously you got, Elizabeth in there who is like great. Yeah, I'm very curious to see it, but I have not had the opportunity yet. All right, what's next?
Oscar Herrera says, the Kandor scene was amazing. Hope we see Brainiac.
I really don't think we're going to see Brainiac. Now, look, from a logistics point of view, knowing that Brainiac is going to be the villain of Superman Man of Tomorrow, there's an opportunity here to introduce Brainiac. Like, not make any of the movie about him whatsoever, but even on a fringe, on the edges kind of way, kind of introduce Brainiac a little bit. There's an opportunity to do that. My guess is they won't, but we'll see. It's very possible. All right, what's next?
We got Robert who says, wait, did I read that one? Robert? Yeah, sorry, I did read that one. We got Mattuine with a $20 super chat. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mattuine.
Netflix thinks they can buy a horse and lasso and say they're a cowboy on day one. Regarding their quote, we're a theatrical release company now. I don't see how things remain status quo for long before they meddle with release run lengths.
There's no basis to believe that. I mean, that's just the whole thing. And look, it's not, here's the difference in your analogy. It's not like they hired one guy and said, we're a theatrical company now. That would be getting ahead of yourself. Mm-hmm. They're literally buying a company in whole and saying, we are now, guess what? I can't go out and hire, who's a big popular baseball player right now? Shohei Ohtani.
Sure.
I can't hire Shohei Ohtani and say, the John Campea crew is in the baseball business now. Well, but if I bought the LA Dodgers tomorrow, guess what? I'm in the baseball business now.
Right.
I have an already fully functional and fully assembled operating mechanisms machine that is a baseball team. I am in the baseball business now. And Ted Sarandos said it the other day. Why would I spend $80 billion to dismantle the value of something? It makes no sense, he said. We're buying Warner Brothers to be Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Now, if you or I had a long list of examples of other companies Netflix bought and then immediately changed them, well, then that's one thing. But the thing is, there is no previous track record to this. Netflix has never bought a studio and then gutted it. Netflix has never bought a studio and then totally changed the way they did things. If there was a track record of that, then despite anything that Ted Sarandos says, I'd be, yeah, but we have a track record. There is no track record here. They're saying, if we just wanted to keep doing the things the way we're doing them, we wouldn't spend $80 billion to go out and get Warner Brothers. He said, we got it because that's the business we want. We also want to be in that business as well as do what we do over at Netflix. We're not going to change what we do at Netflix, but we're not going to change what Warner Brothers does either. We want to be in that business. So I'm just saying, from a fact point of view, there's no reason not to believe it right now. So I don't know. We'll see how things go. All right, what's next?
Nathan the Baron. I recently saw Sentimental Value, and for me, it's the best movie of the year with 2 best performances of the year from Skarsgård and Rensiv. Have you seen it yet? And if so, what do you think?
No, I don't even think it's played anywhere near me.
Mm.
I mean, I haven't seen it. I mean, again, I live out in Riverside, which is different from living in LA. So I've not even seen it play anywhere near me. So all I know is that I've seen a lot of people rave about it. Skarsgård, I think, honestly, maybe not top 10, but I think at the end of the day, if we were put together a list of the top 50 actors of all time, I honestly think Papa Skarsgård's got to be on the list. But I have not had a chance to see this one yet. It's not played anywhere near me that I know
see
of.
it for sure.
All right, what's next?
We got Comic Fan. Yes. Do you think James Gunn will be safe over Netflix?
100%. I honestly believe the only thing that could change that is if James Gunn himself decides to leave. But yeah, Netflix has clearly made overtures. They want to keep their current creative executives in place. They made the comment the other day that for the first time in a long time, DC is showing signs of life. That's because of James Gunn and Peter Safran. The only way James Gunn isn't going to be there anymore is if James Gunn decides to leave. All right, what's next?
We got Animesh who says, what would you say for Jon Favreau taking over Marvel or Star Wars as creative head, especially if Mando and Grogu turns out great ratings-wise?
I don't know. I mean, there was one point where I totally could see if if they did something like what they did with James Gunn and Peter Safran, if you paired Jon Favreau with a truly good movie executive, and you made them co-heads, co-presidents of Lucasfilm, I could see it. Because listen, he's kind of in a miniature way done that already. Like when you looked at Mandalorian, the way he kind of pulled multiple directors in together, and then he was kind of the shepherd of all their individual episodic projects, that was a tiny version of what it would be like to run Lucasfilm. And I thought he did a very good job. Now, hindsight is 2020 because now we're living in a world where Mandalorian Season 3 came out, and quite frankly, it was bad. Mandalorian Season 3 was not good. But I could see him, if paired with a proper movie executive, being like a co-president of Lucas, not Marvel, definitely not Marvel, but maybe Lucasfilm. I wouldn't be against it, personally. All right, what's next?
Let's see. We got Anthony who says, do you think the Doomsday trailer will drop online? I think he means like before.
Listen, I don't know. But I do not think it'll drop before it drops in theaters in front of Avatar. The way I think they're going to do it, and I'm just guessing, my guess is it's going to first be shown to public eyes in movie theaters in front of Avatar. And then very quickly after that, it'll drop online. But I don't think it'll drop online before Avatar. It's not impossible. It totally could, but I don't think it will. All right, what's next?
Brick Artemis says, what is the chance that Supergirl beats Superman at the box office?
Well, that's the hope. The hope is Superman comes out, starts to change the public's perception of DC, because remember, the whole perception of DC was in the gutter after the way the DCEU ran it all into the ground. So the hope is that, Superman comes out, everybody liked it. I mean, obviously not everybody, but the vast majority of the planet really liked it. And the hope is that the next one can make more. The difference is, it's not another Superman movie. It's a much less popular character in Supergirl. So listen, the hope is it can make a little bit more than Superman did. But I think even if it makes close to Superman, I think they'll take that as a big win. But yeah, it's got a shot to make more, depending on word of mouth and all that kind of stuff. All right, what's next?
We got Screen Speak who says, John, how do you recommend getting more popular on YouTube if I have 12,000 subs?
You can hire me as a consultant and I can answer those questions. But honestly, I have no idea who you are, what you do, what your current status is. So I can't just say, go hit this magic button. Yeah. But honestly, I'll tell you what I tell everybody else. Everybody whether it's at conferences that I'm speaking at or people write to me, everybody with a YouTube channel or a podcast or a blog, they always ask the wrong question. The wrong question is, how do I get more viewers? I can tell you guys, I'll tell you right now, that has never been a question I've asked myself. How do I get more viewers has never been a question I've asked myself. As a matter of fact, as people who are very frustrated with me over the years can attest to, I often don't do the things that'll get me more viewers. I avoid doing the things that get me more viewers. I don't do trailer reactions. No disrespect to those who do, none at all. But that's just not me, so that's fine. I don't do trailer reactions. I don't do all these things that get really easy, good, quicks. I don't do daily angry rant videos. Maybe semi-weekly, but not daily angry. Like, if you're getting into YouTube, if you're asking, how do I get more viewers, you're completely missing the point and you're completely off base. That's not the question you should be asking. The only question you should ever be asking yourself and your peers is, how do I make better content? How do I make better content? Don't ask me how you get more viewers. Ask me how you can make your content better. Now, I still couldn't answer that question because I don't know your content. But immediately, that's the first thing I tell people, and that's never the answer they want to hear. Like, everybody asks that question as if there's some magic button somewhere. There's some toggle on YouTube Studio backend admin page. Oh, turn on this toggle and you'll get more viewers. You're asking the wrong question. The question you should always be asking and only be asking is, how do I make my content better? Anyway. All right, what's next?
We got Chris, who says, John, Lucasfilm just announced that they are officially re-releasing the theatrical edition Star Wars 1977 in theaters in 2027. So excited. Hope they do a physical media re-release as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. I'm pretty stoked about it. It's going to be so good to see. I've never seen, in however many decades, the actual original version of Star Wars on the big screen. Whenever they've done re-releases, it's been the special editions. So I'm stoked about it. I'm excited about it. And I'm shocked that the Lucas estate is letting him do it, but I'm pretty stoked that they are, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
We got where are we? OMG Ruler. Friend says Netflix will end wide releases for WB.
Well, your
No.
friend's an idiot. Your friend's wrong. All right, what's next?
Andy, we got a 4-parter here. SPN made an official YouTube account a year ago, and their official IG has been very active in the past year. Seems like Warner Brothers is low-key ramping up a marketing campaign, maybe making deals with Crossroads Demon to revive the show like it's Sam and Dean. I also bet they're keeping an eye on Eric Kripke, hoping that The Boys Season 5 sticks the landing so they can ride off that momentum if they can bring him on to oversee the Supernatural revival, as the best seasons were made under him. Also, Supernatural ended 5 years ago last month and is leaving Netflix next week and will be available on Peacock in December.
Listen, Supernatural, you guys know, is like one of my favorite shows. I loved that show. Even their seasons that weren't all that great, I still loved it because it was just hanging out with Sam and Dean and Castiel and Crowley and all the other characters that made the show so great. I do not believe they're building up. I don't believe they're building up to relaunch it. But if they did, I'll be right there. And you could argue and say they don't need to bring it back. The story ended, leave it alone. And I get that. That would be totally understandable. But again, for me, it was always just about that I loved hanging out with these characters an hour a week. I just love the characters. They could have done an episode where it was literally just, a bunch of the characters, primarily Sam and Dean, sitting around a table, playing cards, drinking beer, eating sandwiches, and talking. And I still would enjoy it because I just love the character so much. So for the record, I don't think they are bringing it back, but I'd be totally down if they did. I really would. All right, what's next?
Got a 2-parter from Andy. Says this is not meant to be political, but it's film related. There's a Supreme Court case about whether a president can fire any member within the FTC, which will override the WBD sale. Have you considered talking about this case, Trump v. Slaughter, if the court rules in favor of the plaintiff?
No, probably not. Look, it's not a secret what I think of President Dumblefuck, but I don't want my channel to be about that, and I think that is one. Again, look, if a particular movie or if a sale does get blocked or something like that, we'll talk about that story. But the way that story is right now, that's purely a political story right now. For now, it's a purely political story. And that's kind of outside the purview of what I like to talk about and what this show is about and what I think people tune into the show. Now, the moment it has direct ramifications, the moment it becomes ensure and has direct ramifications on specific things that are going on in the world of movies, well, at that point, then we'll probably discuss it a little bit. But for now, it really is just exclusively a political story. So not one that I really feel like we should talk about, nor one that I think the vast majority of our audience would be interested in hearing about. All right, what's next?
Venkat says, John Hamnet, it's the most beautiful movie I have watched this year. At this point, it's a three-horse race for the Oscars. Jesse Buckley is winning.
You know, here's the funny thing about Hamnet, which of course is directed by simply one of the greatest directors on the planet in Chloe Zhao. I had a buddy of mine who saw it before me, and you know this person, who said they walked out of Hamnet an hour in. I'm like, oh no, because I've been pretty excited about seeing it. So then I went to go see it, Anna and I went to go see it, and I gotta say, the first hour of Hamnet, I wanted to walk out too. I didn't because Anne was there with me. But I really didn't enjoy it the first hour. And so I completely understood why my friends said they walked out of Hamnet an hour in. But here's the catch. Then the third act happens. And the third act is so good. And as I'm watching the third act, and it's so good, I'm realizing in my head, holy crap, this third act does not have the impact it has if it wasn't for all the groundwork laid in the first hour. Like a lot of movies can have terrible first two acts and have a good third act, but man, they should have just made the first two acts better.
Yeah.
I'm watching this insanely powerful third act, and I'm realizing that first hour of this movie had to be exactly the way it was. And all the things that happened into it, exactly the way they happened, in order for this third act to be as mind-blowingly powerful as it is. Because by the end of the third act, I'm looking around the movie theater I'm in, including my wife, and everybody's a bubbling mess. Everybody's weeping and crying, and it's beautiful, and it's oh my God, the third act of Hamnet is so freaking good, and it's only that good because of the first hour. And taken on its own, the first hour is pretty insufferably boring. But in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed a thing about the first hour now. Now that I know what it creates, I wouldn't have changed a thing about the first hour. So I do not blame my friend at all who said they walked out of it in the first hour. I don't blame them. But now having seen the Act 3 and understanding how pivotal that first hour is, it's a very unique movie in that way. Very unique movie in that way. All right, what's next?
We got a couple more. Luis says, do you think the song choice was wrong because it had some similarities to Star-Lord and Guardians of the Galaxy?
No, that's not. I just thought it was the wrong song. I've often heard, there have been many trailers I've seen that gone, that's the wrong music choice for that trailer. Had nothing. I wasn't thinking Guardians of the Galaxy. I just felt like this doesn't make it feel like Supergirl to me. The Supergirl we met at the end of Superman, the Supergirl from Woman of Tomorrow, it doesn't feel like that to me. And since that song then plays throughout the entire trailer, it was really hard for me to really get into the trailer, even though there were some really great moments of it. And again, let me reemphasize, I don't hate the trailer. I don't hate it. But it just didn't hit me the way that Superman trailer did. You know what I mean? And that I think they could have done with this trailer. But again, it had nothing to do with Guardians of the Galaxy at all. All right, what's next?
Prodi says if Paramount wants to buy CNN, they can still do it because Netflix ain't buying that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers is planning to spin off CNN, TBS, TNT as a separate standalone publicly traded company. And if all that Paramount wanted was to get their hands on CNN, to bastardize it and mutate it into something cold and ugly, well, they can do that for much, 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 much cheaper. They can spend like $2 or $3 billion and get it instead of putting in bits for $100 billion. It just mathematically makes no sense. The belief that Paramount is doing all of this just to get their hands on CNN is absurd because mathematically it makes no sense. They could easily just buy it for $2-3 billion and be done with it. You don't bid $1 billion for a bunch of other stuff just to get your hands on the thing that's worth 1% of that. All right, what's next?
Oh, that was it.
All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Don't forget, guys, to come on back and join us again tomorrow. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Until then, I want to thank, of course, Robert Meyer Burnett, our technical producer, Jonathan Voico.
See you guys later.
My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.